Welcome, everyone. My name is Irina Gerry, and I'm a Chief Marketing Officer at Change Foods, the precision fermentation dairy company. Unfortunately, I couldn't join you in person today, but I'm very excited to give this presentation virtually, and a little bit later, I will actually be joining a live panel with some of my colleagues. What I wanted to talk about today is whether precision fermentation should be considered a friend or a foe of traditional animal-based dairy. So let's dig in. Precision fermentation technology promises to disrupt traditional dairy by creating bioidentical ingredients made entirely without the animal. On one hand, this could be considered a foe and a disruption coming. On the other hand, this could present a very interesting future growth opportunity. As many of you have heard, food systems today contribute to about 1/3 of global greenhouse gas emissions. We are using 50% of all habitable land on this planet to grow and produce food. And we're using majority of our freshwater resources to do so. And unfortunately, this kind of scale of production is not without its consequence. Today, agriculture is responsible for about 78% of ocean and freshwater pollution. And here's the kicker. If you exclude humans, livestock today present 94% of global mammal biomass, which means that we have completely reshaped the face of this planet in order to feed humanity. And when we look at livestock specifically, raising livestock for food, and that includes the pasture land as well as land used to grow crops to feed the animals, is currently occupying nearly 1/3 of our planet, or 77% of all agricultural land, while supplying only 18% of calories. When we dive in a bit further, we're seeing that not only are we using global land to pasture livestock, but we are actually using 1/3 of our most productive croplands to grow crops to feed the animals. By virtue of its size and sheer scope, it has now become the leading driver of tropical deforestation. And just the livestock industry alone is responsible for about 16% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So the overall impact of food, and specifically livestock, is impossible to ignore when we think about sustainability. And the menace and the core of the issue of sustainability issues associated with livestock production is the methane emissions. Those mostly come from ruminant animals such as cows. And methane is 84% more powerful at warming the planet on a 20-year time horizon. And currently, livestock industry is actually the leading source of methane emissions among all industries ahead of oil and gas, contributing to about 1/3 of all human-made methane emissions. That is also very significant. When we zoom into dairy, we actually see that dairy industry alone contributes 2.7% of global greenhouse gas emissions. 4 if we include the meat products that come from previously farmed dairy cows. While it doesn't sound like a lot, it is actually greater than the aviation industry, and we spend a great deal of time and energy worrying about decarbonizing aviation. And the problem is, not only is the dairy industry today contributing to the climate crisis, is that the demand for dairy products is projected to continue to increase. So when we look into the future and want to build a sustainable food future, it is very hard to reconcile what we're seeing today and the impact that already exists with the growing demand and our ability to supply the food products in the future sustainably. When you look at it on per kilogram of food, milk and cheese come right behind beef and lamb in their impacts in terms of emissions, in terms of land use, and in terms of water. In fact, cheese is the most water-intensive food product that we make, requiring a whopping 5,600 liters of water embedded in 1 kilogram of cheese. This is quite significant. So how do we satisfy this growing demand sustainably? When we look at statistics today, we're predicted to have an increase in dairy demand by 55%. So if we take the current state of affairs and we continue to grow the legacy industry with the legacy methods, we're looking to increase emissions, land use, water use, and associated loss of biodiversity. Clearly, we have to address it. So when I look at the dairy industry, I think there's three ways that we can collectively look at this. Obviously, we can improve sustainability of animal-based agriculture. I know a number of initiatives are well underway, and I'm happy to look at those and talk about those as well. We do have plant-based dairy alternatives. Plant-based milk is firmly on the scene across the globe, and I believe there's still room to grow plant-based alternatives as well. And last, we also cannot ignore the new technology coming on the scene, which is animal-free dairy. So let's look at all three and understand how they might come together as a holistic solution. Improving the sustainability of animals-based dairy is something that an industry must do and is already doing today. I'm sure many of you are aware of initiatives underway, such as introducing regenerative farming practices, improving the quality of feed and precision feeding, as well as methane-reducing additives to food, installing biogas digesters to reduce emissions from manure, as well as improved animal genetics and improved animal health to continue to increase the yields. And last but not least, of course, recycling and upcycling ingredients within the food system, such as using manure as fertilizer or using inedible parts of our food production as animal feed. Those are all wonderful initiatives. The problem is, even if we deploy all available strategies, we're still looking at about 30 to 40% reduction in emissions from dairy. That is assuming everything goes to plan. And we're seeing these pledges consistent across multiple organizations within the world of dairy. California Dairy is pledging to reduce its emissions by 40% in line with state objectives. They're underway and implementing a number of these initiatives. However, they are yet to get to the 40%. The FAO, the organization from the United Nations, also estimates that all of these strategies combined, when implemented well, are estimated to deliver about a 30% reduction. And of course, one of the largest players in dairy, Danone, who has been leading this conversation on improving sustainability of animal-based dairy, is also pledging to reduce Scope 3 emissions from dairy, which is emissions associated with farming animals, by 30% by 2030, and the associated methane emissions are also estimated to be reduced by 30% by 2030. So while those are great initiatives overall, and we absolutely must pursue them, even if we're successful at delivering on them, we're still not looking to have dairy industry become carbon neutral. And the issue is that not only are we not getting all the way to a sustainable food future, consumers are continuing to demand dairy products, and we are looking at increased demand. So there's a potential in the future where we can actually see the dairy industry continue to increase its emissions, its water use, and its land use, given the misalignment between demand and growing production and what these incremental improvements could deliver. That brings me to point number 2. Plant-based alternatives are wonderful. They are still a nascent category. Plant-based milk, I'm sure most of you know and have tried and understand, is growing, has been accepted by a segment of consumers, and offers a wonderful alternative to existing animal-based dairy products. However, when we do look at the share, and this is US data, we are still looking at quite small numbers. Where milk is at about 16% of total dairy, of liquid dairy in the United States, creamer at about 9%, and plant-based cheese is under 2%. So this category is very new, it's very nascent, and it certainly needs developing and building. And I believe some of the best and smartest dairy companies are working very hard to offer plant-based alternatives alongside their animal-based product portfolios. And for a good reason. When we look at plant-based milk across the different varieties, it offers tremendous environmental benefit compared to traditionally farmed dairy. There are also health considerations, and consumer preferences to be considered, where younger generations are demanding alternatives to traditional dairy foods. So it is impossible to ignore, but I also think it's quite smart to invest and grow. And today, the bigger barrier is consumers are kind of still held back by some of the nutrition and taster limitations, specifically when it comes to products outside of the milk aisle. Cheese, yogurt, ice cream, butter are good, but they're not all the way there in terms of their nutrition and in terms of their taste and texture experience for consumers. So I believe there's a great opportunity there to leverage the knowledge of consumers and product formulation and distribution to continue to improve and grow this category. And my favorite, of course, is plant-based cheese, and I'm sure most of you in this audience have tried this. And this is where we see the biggest performance gap between what plant-based products have to offer and what consumer expectations are. As we stand today, plant-based cheese just does not hold up to the high standards of consumers who love animal-based cheese. And therefore, we're seeing that the share in market is still quite small. And the problem when it comes to performance and achieving that perfect cheese experience for consumers really lies in the ingredients. The melt and stretch is really hard to achieve with plant-based ingredients. The taste is lacking because we're using alternative oils such as coconut or palm oil that has its own taste and flavor. And of course, the nutrition is lacking. When we're using some of the oils and starches available to us today at scale, we're missing the protein component. So all of those add up to a suboptimal experience for consumers. Precision fermentation is an exciting technology that really closes this performance gap. I won't drain the slide, but I'm sure many of you have heard that precision fermentation in its essence is programming microorganisms to produce a compound of interest. In our case, we're using microorganisms to produce dairy ingredients, so proteins and fats. And we're able, by enabling us to use microorganisms like yeast or fungi, rather than macroorganisms like cow, we can offer a bioidentical ingredient without the use of the animal. And then it enables us to use our best knowledge in product formulation to achieve consumer demand and provide them a product that really no longer requires a massive compromise in terms of their expectation on taste, texture, and nutrition, but also enables us to deliver a much more sustainable product. What we're doing at Change Foods is we have actually two different platforms. We have a protein platform where today we're focused absolutely squarely on casein. The reason we're focusing on casein is because of cheese. In order to create an amazing, stretchy, melty, delicious cheese, we just need those animal-based casein proteins. That is the unlock to deliver the cheese that meets consumer expectations. Right behind casein is also the fats. Those milk fats provide the structure as well as the flavor. And we're able to induce and introduce some of those amazing dairy flavors using animal-free fats delivered through fermentation as well. And the benefits are incredible. We are not currently in market today, but when we look at industry projections and what are we expecting to see, we're expecting that milk protein made via precision fermentation process could deliver incredible environmental savings. 10 times less water consumption, 100 times less land use, 5 times less energy, and 25 times less feedstock. Those are impressive numbers that allow us to produce the same protein ingredient with a much smaller environmental footprint. And surprise, this technology is not even new. In fact, it's been used in dairy and in cheese specifically for the last 30 years. 90% of cheese today worldwide is made using non-animal rennet or microbial rennet. It has been produced via precision fermentation for the last 30 years. So we've all been eating the product of precision fermentation in our most beloved dairy food without really realizing it. So in some ways, this is an evolution of an existing technology, but a revolution in a way that it now enables us to produce the same foods much more sustainably. And We're of course not going to stop just at cheese, because this is a platform technology that allows us to produce a compound of interest. So it very quickly extends to other dairy applications across whey, casein, fats, and flavors. We could see applications in milk, in ice cream, in yogurt, cheese, butter, etc. This is just the beginning. And with the right product formulation expertise, we can truly deliver on what consumers want. So I want to leave you with this thought. While precision fermentation technology appears to be a big disruptor to the traditional ways of farming dairy, I would like to introduce you to the broader world of creating a sustainable future together, because I believe that by working together, we can improve and do the best we can with existing agricultural practices, while also introducing alternatives that are plant-based and other next generation technologies enabled by precision fermentation. Together, we can create a portfolio of products that satisfy different consumer demands for sustainable dairy, while also supplying an ever-increasing plethora of products that consumers demand. So I hope that this presentation was helpful, and I welcome your questions and engagement following this talk. Thank you so much, and I will see you soon.